The night descended like a shroud over the abandoned village, the shadows stretching across the war-torn streets. Sergeant Elias Vorn stepped off the battered transport truck, his boots crunching over shattered glass and debris. The air was thick with a metallic tang, the smell of blood and fire lingering like an invisible phantom. The rest of the squad hesitated at the edge of the village, their eyes scanning the ruined homes, each window like a dark, unblinking eye. Elias adjusted the strap of his rifle, a ritual that kept him tethered to the tangible world. He'd heard the rumors whispered in the military camps, soldiers disappearing without a trace, screams echoing through the fog at night, shadows that moved against the wind. He told himself it was just fear, fatigue, twisting reality. But the unease gnawed at him, a persistent shadow in the corners of his mind. They advanced cautiously down the main street. Broken furniture and torn clothes littered the ground, remnants of lives abruptly ended. The silence was oppressive, pierced only by the distant wail of a dog, or something else. A sudden clang from a collapsed building made Private Lorne freeze, eyes wide. "It's just the wind," Elias muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. A flicker of movement caught Elias' attention. Something darted behind the ruins, impossibly fast, and vanished. His heart thudded. He signaled the squad to spread out, weapons raised. Every shadow seemed to shift as though alive, twisting unnaturally. Then came the first scream. It was a guttural, inhuman sound, echoing from the ruined chapel at the village center. The squad rushed toward it, only to find the building empty. The walls were blackened, scarred with deep claw-like scratches that hadn't been there before. A thick mist began to rise from the cobblestones, curling around their ankles, carrying with it a faint whispering, soft, insidious, and unintelligible. Elias felt the air grow colder. He could see his own breath, each exhale a fragile puff of warmth against the encroaching chill. Something watched them, something hungry. The whispers grew louder, circling their ears, promising horrors beyond comprehension. Private Lorne pointed shakily at the chapel's doorway. "Sir, there's someone inside." Elias raised his flashlight, the beam cutting through the mist. A figure stood in the doorway, a soldier, but his uniform was torn, his eyes hollow pits of darkness. He raised a hand in a silent plea, then vanished as though swallowed by the shadows themselves. Elias knew instinctively they were not alone, and whatever haunted this place was not bound by human rules. The first night in the village would not pass quietly. Shadows lengthened, and the mist thickened, curling around the squad like a living thing. Each corner, each doorway, concealed unseen eyes, waiting for the moment to strike. And in the distance, a bell tolled, though the chapel had no bell and no human hand had rung it. The war had ended, yet the battle was only beginning. Dawn never came in the village. It merely bled into a gray haze that swallowed the ruins whole. The squad huddled around a shallow fire, its flames flickering weakly against the encroaching mist. Each man sat tense, rifles across laps, eyes darting to every shifting shadow. Elias Vorn's mind refused the notion of rest. Sleep was a luxury no longer afforded. Nightmares had already begun to bleed into reality. The fog thickened, curling like living fingers through the streets, twisting around the soldiers' legs and chilling them to the bone. From a mist came whispers, soft, distant, unintelligible at first, but gradually they formed words, hissing from unseen mouths. "Leave, I belong." Elias's hand tightened on his rifle. He motioned the squad to move. "Stay close. Stick together. Don't let it separate us." Private Lorne's knees trembled. "Sir, I can hear them calling my name." The voice was unmistakable. It was his sister's, dead for over a year, yet perfectly clear in the cold mist. Elias felt a knot in his stomach tighten. He knew what it meant. The place toyed with their minds, feeding on fear, grief, and memory. Every soldier had their weaknesses. This village knew them all. They advanced cautiously, rifles scanning the fog-choked streets. The buildings, once houses of ordinary life, now resembled tombs. Every doorway seemed to unopen like a maw, black and endless. Windows reflected ghostly silhouettes, though no one stood there. Shadows shifted unnaturally, moving against the wind, and each movement carried the sense of malevolent intent. A sudden, metallic clang shattered the silence. The squad spun toward the source, a collapsed clock tower. Through the gaps in the rubble, Elias caught a glimpse of something moving, something impossibly fast. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind a faint outline of black smoke, as if it had never been fully corporeal. "Split up," muttered Sergeant Hayes, voice trembling. The others shook their heads. None dared disobey orders. Yet every instinct screamed at Elias. The shadows were stronger than any of them, and separating would be fatal. They pressed on, reaching the village square. There, a fountain long dry and cracked sat at its center. Elias's flashlight beam fell on a body, slumped near the stone basin. The man's uniform was shredded, his face frozen in terror. But it wasn't the corpse that chilled Elias, it was the eyes. They glowed faintly, black and molten, and a whisper seemed to drip from them. "Join us." The squad froze, the fog thickening around them like a suffocating blanket. The whispers multiplied, circling each soldier, echoing their deepest fears. Lorne dropped his rifle, hands over ears, shaking violently. I can't. Elias barked orders, but his voice felt muffled, distant. The world around him warped. The fog seemed alive, pulsating with a rhythm that made the ground quake. Shadows stretched toward them, forming grotesque shapes, faces of the fallen, twisted and grinning, arms reaching for the living. From the corner of his eye, Elias saw movement again. A girl, no older than 10, standing atop the fountain's edge. Her hair was wet, clinging to her pale face. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only hunger. She pointed at Lorne, and he screamed, crumpling to the ground as though an invisible force had ripped his will from him. Elias charged forward, dragging Lorne back from the edge of some unseen abyss. The girl laughed, a high melodic sound that twisted into a scream. She vanished in a swirl of mist, leaving behind only the echo of her laughter and the sense of 100 unseen eyes. The squad gathered, shaken but alive for now. Elias knew they were trapped, ensnared by a force that defied logic. Each step forward would be a battle against the fog, against the shadows, against the whispers that sought to claim their souls. The village had claimed its first night. The second dawn would not be a salvation. Only deeper horrors awaited in the ruined streets, where death, memory, and nightmare converged. Night fell again, heavier than before, pressing down like a living weight. The squad had made camp near the skeletal remains of a church, its walls scarred with deep gouges and blackened from fire. Elias Vorn stood watch while the others attempted fitful sleep, though none truly rested. The whispers had returned, more insistent, threading through the fog like poisonous vines. Then came the sound, a bell tolling. Not a distant echo, but right above them, inside the ruins. The church had no bell, not anymore. Elias' pulse quickened. He raised his rifle, signaling the squad to follow. The mist seemed to part for them, guiding them forward, yet resisting every step as if the village itself were alive, unwilling to let them leave unscathed. Inside the church, shadows clung to every corner. Stained glass shattered, floorboards splintered. The air was dense, carrying the metallic scent of blood and something far older. Decay, rot, the stench of forgotten souls. On the altar lay a shattered bell, its fragments gleaming like jagged teeth under their flashlights. Yet, the tolling continued, each ring echoing from nowhere, vibrating through their bones. Private Lorne whispered, voice shaking, "It's inside us. I can hear it in my head." His eyes rolled back slightly, pupils dilated, as if the shadows had already claimed him. Elias grabbed Lorne's arm. "Focus. It's just a trick, a hallucination. Nothing more." But he could feel the bell's vibration in his chest, a steady drum pulling at the edges of his sanity. Then movement, slow, deliberate, emerged from the shadows. A figure appeared, a soldier from their own unit, missing for months. His uniform was tattered, soaked with mud and blood, but his eyes glowed faintly, like coals in the dark. He lifted a hand, pointing toward the altar. His mouth opened, yet no sound came. Only the tolling continued, louder, merging with whispers that clawed at the squad's minds. Elias. The voice was Lorne's, but not entirely. A chorus of voices merged, familiar and alien, begging, pleading, cursing. The figure advanced. Each step left smoldering footprints, as though reality itself burned beneath him. Elias fired, the rifle's report deafening in the heavy silence. The figure dissolved into mist, but the bell's toll persisted. A new horror emerged. The shadows began to rise from the floor, thin and sinewy, curling around the squad's legs, tightening like chains. They ran. The church doors slammed shut behind them, as if the building were a living trap, the mist swallowing them whole. Outside, the village square was transformed. The fog was denser, swirling violently. Ghostly figures wandered among the ruins, soldiers, villagers, children, all distorted, their faces twisted with pain and hunger. Each step forward was a struggle, as if unseen hands clawed at their boots, their uniforms, their very flesh. Elias's mind raced. They could not fight what they could not see. They could not shoot what had no body. The whispers had names now, real names, the dead calling for the living to join them, dragging memories into the tangible, tangible into nightmare. At the edge of the square, the squad found the fountain again. The ghostly girl from before emerged from the mist, her pale eyes locking onto Elias. She smiled, but this time the smile was wider, crueler. Around her, the shadows writhed, and the broken fragments of the bell floated in the air, circling like hungry moths. Elias raised his rifle, aiming at her, but she vanished before the bullet could fire. In her place, a black fog erupted from the fountain, reaching toward the squad like tendrils, thick and suffocating. Each soldier screamed as the fog wrapped around them, filling their lungs with cold, choking air. And then silence fell. When Elias opened his eyes, the squad was gone. The village was empty again, only fog swirling around broken buildings. The bell no longer tolled, but in the distance he could see faint shadows moving among the ruins, watching, waiting. He realized with a sinking certainty that the village had chosen him as the next witness, the next victim. Night had claimed the square, and the shadows were patient. The fog never lifted. By the fourth night, the village had transformed into an impossible maze. Streets twisted back upon themselves, buildings rearranged themselves when no one was looking, and alleys led to walls that weren't there before. Elias Vorn staggered through the labyrinth, alone. The rest of the squad had vanished, claimed by the shadows, or lost in the village's cruel geometry. Each step echoed unnaturally, as if the earth itself mocked him. The whispers were constant now, layered over one another, voices of the dead and the missing blending into a cacophony that scraped at his mind. Join us, we wait. Why resist? Each word was a knife twisting in memory, dredging up grief, guilt, fear. Elias gritted his teeth, forcing his boots over broken cobblestones. Every instinct screamed to run, yet he knew there was nowhere to run. A sudden movement caught his eye. A child, a boy, no more than 8, stood in a doorway, staring at him. His eyes were hollow, black voids reflecting nothing. The boy's lips moved, forming a warning, "Don't trust the walls." Before Elias could react, the child disappeared, swallowed by the mist. The hallway behind him, which he had been following, twisted violently, doors slamming shut where there had been none, trapping him in a corridor that seemed to stretch infinitely. His flashlight flickered. Shadows danced across the walls, growing taller, thinner, impossibly long. Figures emerged, soldiers he recognized, villagers he had seen in memories, even civilians from his hometown, all with faces distorted in silent screams. They moved in slow, deliberate patterns, circling him, always keeping just out of reach. Then he saw it, a massive figure cloaked entirely in black, standing atop a collapsed roof. It had no face, only an endless void where its features should have been. Each movement it made warped the air, bending light and fog around it. Elias's throat went dry. The figure raised one hand, and the walls of the alley bent inward, narrowing the path. He was trapped. A voice whispered directly in his ear, "We are your past, your sins, your fears. You cannot escape." Elias spun, rifle raised, but nothing was there. Only the suffocating fog and the distant echo of a bell tolling somewhere impossibly close. Desperate, Elias ran. Corridors became staircases that led nowhere. Streets looped back into themselves, and the fog seemed alive, curling around his legs, tugging him off balance. Memories assaulted him. Faces of fallen comrades, screams of innocence, and the guilt of missions gone wrong. Each memory made the shadows stronger, feeding the village's malevolent will. He stumbled into a square dominated by a towering, skeletal tree. Its branches stretched impossibly high, blackened and twisted like the limbs of the dead. Hanging from the limbs were fragments of the missing soldiers' uniforms, helmets, and gear, swinging gently though no wind blew. Elias recognized pieces from his own squad. His stomach churned. He realized with a sickening certainty, the village consumed the living and left their essence behind as trophies. From a fog emerged the girl from the fountain, the one who had smiled so cruelly before. Her presence drew the shadows with her, a mass of writhing forms that swirled around her feet. She tilted her head at Elias and whispered, "One step closer, where you belong too." Elias raised his rifle, but the fog snatched it from his hands. It vanished into thin air. He was unarmed, defenseless, standing in the center of the village's labyrinth, the shadows closing in from all directions. Fear clawed at him, but something deep in his gut forced him forward. Survival meant facing the horrors, not fleeing. A doorway appeared suddenly, framed in light that shouldn't exist. Without thinking, Elias ran toward it. The shadows recoiled, hissing like predators denied their prey. As he passed through, the village seemed to shift violently, the labyrinth twisting violently behind him. He didn't stop running. He couldn't. For the first time, he glimpsed a path beyond the fog, a faint glimmer of dawn, distant and fragile, promising temporary escape. But he knew it would not be easy. The village had tasted him, and the shadows were patient. The labyrinth had tested him, and the true trial, the one that would define whether he lived or became another phantom among the ruins, was just beginning. The path beyond the labyrinth led Elias to a courtyard unlike any other in the village. Ruined statues of soldiers and civilians stood frozen mid-motion, their faces etched in expressions of agony and despair. The fog clung low to the ground, thick and suffocating, and the air vibrated with distant cries, hundreds of voices speaking in unison, though each seemed to tell a different story. The village was alive with memory, and memory had become its weapon. Elias stepped carefully, boots crunching over shards of stone. The whispers followed him, merging into coherent sentences. "We died here, we suffered, we wait for you." Each word clawed at his mind, dredging up images of past battles, fallen comrades, and every choice that had haunted him. He shivered. This place did not merely haunt the living. It fed on them, turning guilt and grief into weapons. At the center of the courtyard stood a massive fountain, unlike the one from before. Its waters were black and still, reflecting the moonlight with unnatural clarity. In its depths swirled countless faces, the missing, the dead, the lost, pressing against the surface as if begging to escape. Elias felt drawn to it, his own reflection merging with the distorted visages. He saw his own fear staring back, and in it, the village whispered promises of surrender. "Stay focused," Elias muttered to himself, gripping the rifle he had somehow retrieved. Every shadow shifted with intention. From the mist emerged another figure, this one taller, wearing the uniform of a commanding officer, though his face was torn and burned. His eyes glowed with molten black fire, and his mouth moved soundlessly, lips curling in a twisted smile. Elias instinctively raised his rifle, but the figure vanished before the trigger could pull. Then the ground trembled. Statues cracked and split, pieces toppling into the black fountain. Water erupted, sending faces screaming into the night air. Each fragment of stone seemed to take on life, forming grotesque shapes, half human, half shadow, that advanced toward Elias, hands clawing and jaws snapping. He fired blindly, each shot dissolving into mist before reaching its target. A cold, lilting laugh echoed through the courtyard. The girl from the fountain reappeared, her presence commanding the shadows, orchestrating the nightmare around him. "You cannot save them," she whispered. "They belong to us now." Elias's mind raced. The village had a history, a dark, unrecorded past of soldiers and civilians slaughtered, forgotten, yet unwilling to rest. Each spirit here had been twisted into a weapon, and now he faced them all. He ran toward the fountain, heart pounding, and the shadows surged to meet him, whispering names of the fallen, mocking memories, demanding allegiance. Then something unexpected happened. The faces in the fountain's waters began to scream, not in anger, but in warning. "The bell! The bell!" a chorus cried, though no bell rang. Elias remembered the shattered bell from the church, the fragments that floated like hungry moths. He realized the tolling had not been a sound. It had been a signal, a key. He dove into the fountain, plunging his hands into the icy black water. Shapes lashed at him, trying to drag him down, but he clutched a fragment of the bell, its edges jagged and cold. As soon as he held it, the screams intensified, voices merging into a roar. The shadows faltered, recoiling from the fragment as if it were light itself. Elias emerged, gasping, the fragment in his hands glowing faintly. The fog shifted, and for the first time he sensed a path forward. The village had tested him, but perhaps, just perhaps, it could be challenged. Yet the girl's laughter lingered, a cruel reminder. Victory would not come easily. The night was far from over. The echoes of the fallen remained, hungering, waiting, and the bell fragment was only the beginning of Elias's fight against the supernatural terrors that had consumed the war-torn village. Elias clutched the bell fragment as he pushed deeper into the village, the fog thickening around him like a living entity. The streets had lost all sense of reality. Walls appeared where none existed, buildings twisted into impossible angles, and the shadows themselves seemed to breathe. The fragment pulsed faintly in his hands, a cold, steady heartbeat that both comforted and warned him. From the distance, a low, rumbling chant echoed, a language unknown, yet strangely familiar, tugging at memories Elias did not recognize. He followed the sound, senses sharpened, aware that each shadow could hide death. Every step felt heavier, as though the village were attempting to crush his resolve, bending time and space to ensnare him. The chant led him to a massive cathedral-like ruin at the heart of the village. Its spire pierced the foggy sky, and inside, the darkness was thicker than any night he had ever known. Statues of angels, soldiers, and civilians lined the walls, their eyes hollow and unblinking. Yet here, the shadows moved with a will, sliding along the floor, climbing the walls, and congregating at the altar where a massive, blackened bell hung, intact, ominous, and thrumming with power. Elias approached cautiously, the fragment in his hands resonating with the larger bell. It was as if the two were connected, a cosmic link between him and the village's heart. The whispers grew louder, now forming sentences. "You cannot leave, surrender, belong." Then she appeared, the girl, no longer innocent, no longer small. Her presence dominated the ruin. Shadows swirled around her like a cloak, and the floor beneath her seemed to ripple. "You found one piece," she said softly, voice like glass scraping stone. "But this is only the beginning. The heart is mine, and I protect it." Elias raised the fragment. The shadows recoiled slightly, but the girl's grin widened, her form flickering between child and nightmare, innocence and terror. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing on his lungs. He realized the village itself was a sentient entity, feeding on fear, grief, and the souls of the fallen. Suddenly, the shadows attacked, writhing, splitting into multiple forms, aiming to overwhelm him. Elias swung the fragment, striking one tendril after another. Each touch caused the shadow to hiss and dissipate briefly, but more appeared from the corners of the cathedral, faster, relentless. He had no time to aim. Survival was instinct. He lunged toward the massive bell, feeling the fragment resonate with it, amplifying its unseen energy. The bell pulsed violently, sending vibrations through the ruin. Shadows shrieked, convulsed, and retreated for a moment, as if the fragment allowed Elias to challenge the very will of the village. The girl screamed, a sound that fractured the air, and the cathedral itself seemed to respond. Walls bending, spires twisting, floorboards cracking. Elias could feel the weight of hundreds of lost souls pressing against him. Yet he moved forward, driven by a force beyond fear. Finally, he reached the base of the bell. He raised the fragment and slammed it against the massive iron, and a deafening chime rang out. Not a sound, but a force, a shockwave that rolled through the ruin. Shadows scattered, some dissipating entirely, others screaming as they retreated into corners unseen. The girl screamed too, her form flickering violently before vanishing into the mist with a final malevolent laugh. This is not over. Silence followed, but it was fragile, the calm before the storm. Elias stood alone, the cathedral looming, the bell fragment warm in his hands. He realized the fragment was a key, a weapon, but only part of the puzzle. The village had a consciousness, a heart, and confronting it fully would require more than courage. It would demand strategy, resolve, and a confrontation with horrors beyond imagination. The night was far from over, and the fog still moved, watching, waiting. Elias knew the final encounter awaited him deeper within the village. The heart of darkness had been revealed, but would he survive what came next? The village pulsed with malevolence, every twisted street and shattered building alive with the weight of hundreds of lost souls. Elias Vorn moved cautiously, the bell fragment clutched tightly in his hands. Its faint glow was the only light against the choking fog, which seemed to twist and breathe around him. The heart of the village awaited, the source of the darkness, the wellspring of all the shadows, and the final challenge to his sanity. The air vibrated with whispers, each louder than the last. They spoke directly into his mind. "We own you. You belong, surrender." Each voice tugged at his memory, dredging up every death he had witnessed, every failure, every choice he had made that had allowed others to die. Yet he pressed forward, determined. The fragment hummed, as if responding to his resolve. He reached the center of the village square. The skeletal fountain glowed faintly, shadows rising from it like smoke. And there she stood, the girl, taller now, her features shifting between child and nightmare. The shadows around her were vast, writhing into shapes far larger than human, stretching toward the foggy sky. "You've come far," she whispered, voice melodic yet cruel. "But the heart belongs to me. You cannot stop it." Elias tightened his grip on the fragment. The bell vibrated in his hands, and he felt an energy surge through him, connecting him to the blackened bell in the cathedral, the pulse of the village itself. He realized the fragment could not destroy the village. It could only challenge its will. The final toll would decide if he survived. The shadows surged forward, tendrils snaking across the square, trying to snatch him, twist him, drag him into the fog. Elias swung the fragment, sending pulses of light through the darkness. Each pulse scattered the shadows temporarily, but the girl laughed, amplifying their strength with her will. Elias remembered the faces in the black fountain, those trapped souls. He focused on them, envisioning their pain, their desire for freedom. The fragment pulsed violently, glowing brighter than ever. Shadows shrieked, recoiling from the combined force of his resolve and the captured soul's lingering will. The girl screamed, a sound that fractured the air, bending reality. The fog churned violently, forming massive shadowy shapes, twisted soldiers, civilians, and creatures of nightmare, all advancing in unison. Elias braced himself, planting the fragment against the ground. The pulse expanded outward, a shockwave that lit the fog like lightning, striking each shadow. They wailed, dissolving into nothing, the fog thinning. The village trembled, buildings cracking, streets splitting. The heart of the village, the cathedral, the spire, the massive bell, shivered as though in pain. Elias felt the fragment resonating with the village's consciousness, a warning and a threat combined. The girl rose above the shadows, trying one last assault. Elias raised the fragment high and slammed it down. The shock wave radiated through the village with unimaginable force. The girl screamed, her form splintering, flickering, then vanishing entirely into the dissipating fog. The shadows melted, returning to the mist, leaving the village eerily silent. Elias fell to his knees, gasping. The fog thinned, revealing the ruins of the village under pale dawnlight. Silence reigned, broken only by the distant call of birds, a world returning to something resembling reality. Yet he knew the village's consciousness still lingered, weakened but patient. Its hunger for souls remained, waiting for the next unwary traveler. He rose, the fragment still glowing faintly. Victory had been claimed, but at a cost. The squad was gone, the memories of the dead lingered in his mind, and the village's dark presence would forever haunt the edges of his consciousness. The war outside had ended, but this battle, against shadows, grief, and the supernatural, would never truly leave him. Elias walked away from the ruins, the fragment's light dimming as the sun broke over the horizon. He survived, but the village had marked him. Every shadow in the world, every whisper on the wind, now carried a reminder of what he had faced, the heart of darkness, and the price of staring into it. The final toll had sounded, and he had answered.